I should have never taken that shortcut through Willow Creek. I'd been warned by locals, but I was running late that stormy night, and the GPS kept pointing me toward the old path that ran alongside the dried-up creek. It was supposed to be abandoned land, overgrown, forgotten, left behind. But about halfway through, around 11:48 p.m., my headlights caught a figure standing completely still by the edge of the road. A woman, pale, drenched in what looked like a funeral dress. I slammed the brakes. She didn't move. Her head was tilted slightly like she was listening to something I couldn't hear. I rolled the window down just a crack, and over the drumming rain, I heard the faintest whisper, "He never came back." I was frozen. My gut screamed drive. But something deeper, something unexplainable made me get out. I called to her. No response. Just then she turned her head slowly toward me and screamed. A scream so sharp, so full of rage and sorrow, that it echoed across the creek bed. I stumbled back into my car and floored it. The next few miles were a blur. But I swear, every time I blinked I saw her face again, in the rear view, in the mirror, in the trees beside me. I made it home, locked the doors, and convinced myself it was just a ghost story brought to life by exhaustion. Until I found the wet footprints. They trailed across my living room floor, from the front door to the kitchen, though I hadn't stepped in water. I checked the cameras. At exactly 3 a.m. the footage glitched for 5 seconds. When it came back, the living room was empty, but the front door was wide open. That night was just the beginning. Because over the next month, every night at 3 a.m., something came to my house. Sometimes it knocked. Sometimes it wailed. Sometimes it scratched at the windows. But always it whispered my name. I started researching Willow Creek. Digging through old library records, folklore blogs, anything. That's when I found the legend of Eleanor Wren, known locally as the widow of Willow Creek. The story went that in the 1800s, Eleanor's husband died in a mining accident, and when she heard the news, she wandered into the woods in her wedding gown and drowned herself in the creek. But the weird part? The body was never found. For over a century, people swore they saw her near the creek, crying, screaming, begging. But she wasn't just an apparition. She was a curse. Anyone who saw her was doomed to suffer hallucinations, madness, or vanish entirely. There were dozens of stories. Farmers who went missing, children found babbling in the woods, hikers who slit their own throats. And they all started with the same thing, a drenched woman in white and a whisper in the dark. The deeper I went, the worse things got. One night, I found a puddle in my hallway that led to the bathroom. Inside, every mirror had fogged over, though the room was ice cold. And on each mirror, with what looked like a wet finger, someone had written, "Say you'll stay." I called in a paranormal investigator. Her name was Teresa. Older woman, no nonsense, highly recommended. She lasted exactly 36 hours. When she left, she was pale, shaking, muttering, "She's not a ghost. She's a widow, bound to this world by betrayal." I begged her to stay, to help me break whatever this was. Her response? "You already let her in. It's not about seeing her. It's about hearing her. She knows your name now." I stopped going to work. Couldn't sleep. Couldn't eat. The widow's presence was in every room. The lights would flicker at exactly 3 a.m. The air would turn cold and thick. Sometimes I'd hear sobbing coming from the basement, even though I don't have a basement. And one night, I woke up to the sound of running water. I found my bathtub overflowing with black, muddy water. Floating in it was a single antique wedding ring. I tried burning the ring. It wouldn't melt. I buried it in the woods. The next day it was back on my kitchen table. Then came the dreams, or maybe they were visions. I'd see myself standing at the edge of Willow Creek. The widow was there, hand outstretched, eyes empty. She'd say, "Stay with me. Say you will." Over and over. And every time I refused, the dream would end with me drowning, gasping, choking, dragged under by cold, unseen hands. I sought help from a local historian. He told me there was an old, condemned chapel deep in the forest, near the original mining site. Some believed that's where Eleanor had made her final plea, to a dark entity in exchange for revenge. The historian warned me, "If you go there, you might not come back. But if you don't, she'll never stop." So I went. The chapel was barely standing. Covered in vines, roof half collapsed, altar scorched. But the moment I stepped inside, the air shifted. I could feel her there. Watching. Waiting. I stood before the altar and yelled, "What do you want from me?" Silence. Then a whisper behind me, "You said you'd stay." I turned. She was there. Soaked, shivering, eyes like cracked glass. Her mouth moved, but no words came out. Just a gurgling sound. I closed my eyes and said the words the historian told me, an old Latin phrase once used by grieving wives. The air screamed. The chapel shook. The candles burst into flame. And then, silence. I woke up on the road. It was dawn. My car was parked beside me, keys in the ignition. I drove home. Weeks passed. The knocking stopped. No more puddles. No more whispers. I thought it was over. Until last night. 3 a.m. I found water on the floor again. And on the bathroom mirror, the words, "I never left." And this time, when I blinked, her reflection was standing behind me. If you've ever worked a night shift at a hotel, you know that silence can be the loudest thing in the world. I was working as an overnight manager at an old and off-the-highway in New Mexico, a weird place that hadn't been updated since the 70s, with shaggy carpet, faded wallpaper, and flickering exit signs. Nothing much ever happened except for one bizarre incident that changed my life forever. On one rainy Thursday at around 2:46 a.m., a woman called the front desk asking to be transferred to room 616. I paused. We didn't have a room 616. Our rooms only went up to 615. I told her politely it must be a mistake. But she just whispered, "He's not picking up." I heard him scream. Her voice was distant, distorted, like it was coming through a bad signal or an old tape. I tried to ask more, but the line went dead. Curious and unnerved, I pulled up the booking system. Room 616 was indeed not in our records. But something made me walk the 6th floor. I didn't tell anyone. I took the service elevator alone. The corridor was completely dark. Lights out, emergency power blinking dim red. As I walked past 615, I counted out loud, 611, 612, 613, 614, 615, and then I saw it. A door with no number. Plain gray, slightly ajar. I swear the air shifted. It got colder. And from behind that door I heard a rhythmic tapping. Like someone drumming on glass. I pushed the door open, and what I saw didn't make sense. It wasn't a hotel room. It was an old psychiatric ward room. Metal bed, restraints, rusted sink, peeling green paint. And scrawled across every wall in black marker over and over, "I am still here." I closed the door and walked away. Didn't report it. Didn't even tell my supervisor. But that night was the first of many. Every shift afterward, strange things started happening. Room keys disappearing. Elevators stopping on the 6th floor with no one inside. And every time I passed the front desk, the phone would ring, and when I answered, silence. Then static. Then a whisper, "Do you see it now?" A guest checked out early one morning, pale and trembling. I asked what was wrong. She said, "There's a man in the mirror. But he doesn't move when I do. He watches." I checked her room after she left. Room 610. Inside, every mirror was shattered. But not broken. It was like someone, or something, had punched straight through them from the inside. I started recording night shifts on my phone. One clip showed me walking past the hallway, and in the far end, where the camera shouldn't reach, there was a flicker. A frame of someone standing in front of room 616's door. But when I paused it, the figure didn't have a face. Just smooth skin, stretched tight where features should be. I started dreaming about that room. Dreams where I was strapped to the bed, unable to scream, while a man in a white coat repeated a number into my ear, 616, over and over until I woke up gasping. The line between night and nightmare blurred. I quit the job. Moved to another city. Thought I was safe. But 2 weeks after leaving, I got an envelope in the mail. No return address. Inside was a key card with the number 616 etched into it. I burned it. I couldn't let it go. I went back months later as a guest. The hotel had been shut down, claims of asbestos, they said. But I knew the truth. I bribed the site security to let me walk the 6th floor one last time. The hallway was sealed off, but room 616 was still there. This time the door was locked. I picked it. I shouldn't have. Inside, the room was untouched, exactly as I remembered. But this time there was a file sitting on the bed. It had my name on it. Not a copy. A hospital file. With pictures of me. Notes. Sessions. Diagnoses. It said I had been committed to Willow Hills Psychiatric Institute in 2002. I was 10 in 2002. I'd never heard of the place. But as I read through the documents, memories I didn't know I had started surfacing. Always like the one I'd seen. That same metal bed. The whispering man in the white coat. They'd wiped something. Hid something. Room 616 wasn't a hotel room. It was a pocket. A sealed dimension tied to the institute. A place where time didn't work right. Where the past leaked through cracks in the wall. I left that day and tried to move on. But things kept happening. The number 616 would appear on receipts, clocks, phone calls. My new apartment had 616 carved under the paint on the front door. I tried therapy, rituals, even exorcisms. Nothing worked. That room remembered me. And now it wanted me back. One night, I woke up strapped to a bed. I thought it was another dream. But this time it wasn't. The smell of antiseptic, the sound of buzzing lights, the cold metal on my skin, it was all real. I was back in room 616. The man in the white coat returned. He leaned close and whispered, "You left too soon. We weren't done with you." I screamed. I fought. I blacked out. When I woke again, I was home. Or what looked like home. But things were wrong. My neighbors didn't recognize me. My dog didn't come to me. My reflection blinked half a second after I did. The TV would play footage of me standing in room 616 even when it was off. And my bedroom? The walls were turning green. The number was written under the wallpaper. And at 616 every night, I hear that same voice whispering from behind the mirror, "Time to remember." What if room 616 wasn't in the hotel at all? What if it was in me all along? And the most terrifying thought? What if I never left? They say old houses creak, but this wasn't creaking. It started with a soft scraping, like someone dragging their nails along the wooden floor beneath my bed. I had just moved into a century-old home deep in the Appalachian woods, a place I inherited from an uncle I barely remembered. I had just quit my job in the city, burned out from years of stress and hollow ambition. I thought the isolation would be healing. The air smelled like pine, the nights were silent, and I thought I had found peace. But that first night, I woke up at exactly 3:13 a.m. Not 3:12. Not 3:14. My digital clock blinked like a heartbeat. The sound was steady. Scratch plus scratch. Slow, deliberate. I told myself it was animals, maybe raccoons under the foundation. I even knocked on the wood. No response. But then, 3 nights later, I heard the scratching again, this time accompanied by a deep, groaning creak. I sat up, heart pounding. I wasn't dreaming. It was coming from directly under me. I tiptoed across the room, opened the door, and flicked on the hall light. Everything was still. But when I turned back, my bedroom door, which I'd left open, was slowly swinging shut. The next morning, I crawled under the house. Flashlight. Gloves. Determined to debunk it. But I found no burrows, no droppings, no signs of animal life. Just cold dirt and aged wood beams. Still, the sound continued. Every night. 3:13 a.m. Like clockwork. It never came earlier. Never came later. Just that precise, horrifying moment when the world feels thinner. I started sleeping with the lights on. But that didn't help. Because now, I wasn't just hearing sounds. I was feeling it, vibrations in the floorboards like something was moving beneath them. And then one night, I found a single deep scratch on the inside of my bedroom door, like a claw had raked across it from the inside. That was the moment I stopped pretending it was just an old house. By the second week, the air in the house grew heavier, almost sticky. I'd wake up drenched in sweat, and the smell, something like rust and mold, lingered no matter how many windows I opened. Then the messages started. It began with streaks in the dust, long, thin trails that stretched from one side of the room to the other. I assumed it was me brushing against surfaces or drafts stirring it up. But then one morning, I woke up and found something beneath the bed. I don't know what compelled me to look, but there it was. In the dust, scrawled with a finger, "Come closer." I froze. Sat there staring at it until the sun came up. I took a photo, convinced I was losing my mind. When I showed it to the only neighbor within 10 miles, a man named Harland who ran a roadside bait shop, he looked at the photo, then at me and said, "You need to leave that place. Your uncle, he didn't die of natural causes." Harland told me stories. Said the house had once belonged to a man named Elijah Crowthorne, a preacher who'd broken from the church in 1933 and founded his own following. A small cult that worshipped something older than God, something they called the listener beneath. Children disappeared in those woods. Locals whispered, but nothing was ever proven. My uncle had bought the house decades later, lived alone, became increasingly paranoid. Told people he heard things. Scratching. Voices. Just like me. He died in the house. They said it was a heart attack. But Harlan said they found him in the basement, staring at the floor with his eyes wide open. And the coroner noted his fingernails were torn off, as if he'd been clawing at something. I tried to leave that night. Packed my truck. Drove down the mountain road. Not even 5 miles out, a tree had fallen across the road. Massive, ancient. I turned back. Next day I tried again. This time my truck wouldn't start. Battery was fine. No animals chewed the cables. I called a tow company, phone died mid-call. The house was trapping me. I knew it. And every night the scratching got louder. Closer. Like it was learning me. I stopped sleeping. My eyes were bloodshot. My hands trembled constantly. I boarded up the floor vents. Slept on the couch. But no matter where I moved in the house, the sound followed. 3:13 a.m. Without fail. And then one night it stopped scratching. That should have been a relief. But the silence was worse. Because it was replaced by whispering. It was so faint I thought I was imagining it. But when I pressed my ear to the floor, I heard it. A child's voice. Repeating again and again, "It hurts, let me out, it hurts, let me out." I snapped. Tore up the floorboards in the bedroom. Ignored the bleeding cuts on my hands. Beneath them was dirt and a tunnel. A narrow crawl space. I couldn't see the end. Just darkness. I should have sealed it up. Called the police. Left and never looked back. But I couldn't. I felt pulled to it. Like I was supposed to go down there. So I did. The air was thick, wet. The tunnel sloped downward. I crawled for what felt like hours. Found scratch marks on the walls, fresh ones. Some deep. Some with blood. Then the tunnel opened into a crude chamber. Dirt floor. Stone walls. And in the center, a child's skeleton. Surrounding it were dolls. Old, rotted. Arranged in a circle. Each with their mouths sewn shut with black thread. And in the far corner, something moved. It was pale. Long-limbed. Crawling like a spider. Faceless. But I felt it looking at me. I scrambled back, screamed until my voice gave out. Somehow, I made it back to the bedroom. Covered the tunnel. Nailed the boards down. But I could still hear it. Every night. Whispering. Breathing. Waiting. And now. I was sure it wasn't under the house anymore. I left the house the next morning. Took nothing but my wallet. Hitchhiked to the nearest town. Told the sheriff someone had broken into the home. I didn't care. I just wanted out. I sold the house for whatever I could get. But I couldn't escape it. The scratching followed me. First in my motel room. Then in my sister's guest room. Always at 3:13 a.m. It was inside me now. I could feel it, like a cold weight in my chest. I visited priests. Mediums. A psychic who vomited when she held my hand. Every single one said the same thing: "You brought something back with you." I recorded the sounds. Set up cameras. On one tape you can hear a voice, deep, gurgling, saying my name. On another, a pale hand reaches into the frame from under the bed, then pulls back. I showed the footage to a paranormal investigator. He quit the next day, moved states, and blocked my number. Now I don't sleep. I don't eat much. I just wait. 3:13 a.m. Every night. The scratching always returns. Sometimes it whispers. Sometimes it laughs. I think it's getting closer. The walls in my apartment are cracking. My neighbors hear it now. And I know, one night it won't be under the floor anymore. It'll be standing right behind me.